Chapter 21, the last phase of his pilgrimage. I will travel across the length and breadth of India barefooted. Thus said Swami Abhedananda when captivated by the ideals of the monastic life that he set out for his eventful pilgrimage to the four corners of India. His intention was not merely an intention, rather it was his strong determination, or it might be said that it was an instinct with him, just as it was with his spiritual brother, Swami Vivekananda, who was equally captivated by his vision of the monastic life. To record the full story of his great ambulation across India for 10 years is simply impossible, and we are just touching the chief episodes. After he became a little better, it was decided that Swami Abhedananda should proceed to Varanasi to recoup his health. It was Swami Sharadananda who then made all necessary arrangements and even provided his convalescing Gurubai with a third-class ticket for his journey from Hardwar to Varanasi. Arriving in Varanasi the next afternoon, Swami Abhedananda went to the residence of a lady known as Annapurna Ma, which was also fixed up by Swami Sharadananda. Swami Vivekananda, who was then at Gazipur visiting Pohari Baba, hastened to Varanasi on receipt of Abhedananda's illness. It is written in the main biography of Vivekananda this way. The persistent rumors of the illness of Abhedananda compelled him at last to go to Varanasi. This fitted in with his plans, for he had had in his mind for some time the secret desire to practice tapas in the holy city. He hurried to Varanasi as the guest of Pramada Sharan Mitra. After making every arrangement for the care of Abhedananda, he settled himself at Pramananda Babu's garden and devoted his entire time to the practice of austerities. Abhedananda has written that Vivekananda himself was then suffering from a type of influenza. It was from Pramada Babu that he had learned the arrival of Vivekananda and also that he was putting up at a certain residence. Since there was nobody to attend the ailing Vivekananda and he was not being properly nursed, Swami Abhedananda, who himself had not yet then fully recovered, became extremely anxious to do the needful and expressed his desire to make the necessary arrangements for the nursing of Swami Vivekananda. But how can you do that when you yourself have just recovered? Intervened Pramada Babu. But I paid little heed to his words and insisted that I should be taken to Vivekananda. He was very much pleased to see me after a long time and expressed his regret at the state of my health. He was then bedridden and suffering much from influenza. At once I began to attend him, though I was forbidden to do so. Attending continuously for 2 days, I nursed him to recovery. They were really the spiritual sons of their master, and as one reads their lives, one comes across many such instances which prove, if any proof is needed, that the brotherhood of the monks which had formed at Anpur was not a sentimental outburst, but a concrete reality. They had left their home and hearth, parents and relations, to become sannyasins, with renunciation as their creed and austerity as their article of faith. And yet it passes our imagination, how could they be affectionate to each other? Was it the touch of universal love that they had received from the hands of their master that had bound them up with this tie of affection? It certainly must have been. For here one sees a hand of young sannyasins, robed in gurua and with a staff in their hand, the like of which India has seldom seen. It is not for the intellectuals to take a measure of them. While Swami Abhedananda, along with Swami Vivekananda, was at Varanasi, the news of the passing away of Balaram Bose reached him from Calcutta, He was a revered householder devotee of Sri Ramakrishna. It was a heartrending news, no doubt, and both of them felt sad at the death of the great householder devotee of the Master. It will not be out of place here to refer to the reaction of this news in the mind of Vivekananda, which has been touchingly described by his biographers this way. He was plunged into a sea of grief. The memory of innumerable days of sweet companionship, of a staunch friendship that crowded upon him, made him but lament. Pramada Babu was struck to see a monk, strict Vedantist, so upset by death. But Naren said, "Please do not talk that way. We are not dry monks. What? Do you think that because a man is a sannyasin, he has no heart?" Has India even seen or heard of this type of sannyasin who responded equally to the call of renunciation as well as to the call of the heart? Perhaps not. The readers of Swami Vivekananda's life will recall that when Sarat Chandra Gupta, afterwards known as Swami Sadananda, the first disciple of Swami Vivekananda, fell ill, Vivekananda carried him on his shoulders through dangerous jungles. This time also we find the Swami hurried to Calcutta with the intention to bringing solace to the bereaved family of Balaram Bose. If the sons of Sri Ramakrishna carried the standard of renunciation and austerity, they also carried the flag of tenderness, of heart, such as we notice only in the life of Gautama Buddha. The greatness of spirit exhibited in their life was thus sanctified by the mellow touch of heart, which could easily embrace the humanity at large with a universal love. Vivekananda was certainly right that they were not dry monks, and India was in need of them towards the closing years of the 19th century. Now to our narration. His first journey from Puri to Kedarnath and Badranath had brought ancient India vividly before the eyes of Swami Abhedananda. That is, the eternal India, the India of the Vedas and the Upanishads and Puranas. And thus he realized at the first impact the spiritual unity of India. His next pilgrimage to Rajputan and thence towards the western and southern regions of India was equally fruitful. This time his itinerary led him through Agra, Delhi, Jaipur, Udaipur, Khitri, Dwarka, Pune, and other interesting places of interest in South India. He traveled to the extreme point of the immense pyramid where is the Varanasi of southern India, Rameshwaram. From north to south, the ancient land of India was full of gods, yet the unbroken chain of their countless arms formed only one god. Abhedananda, the Parvrajaka, fully realized their unity of flesh and spirit. During this time, twice he met Vivekananda, who was also then, that is, in the year 1891-1892, leading the monk's life under a different name before his departure for America. From the contemporary accounts we gather that from the north to the south in their solitary flight across India, the two sannyasins, then comparatively unknown, were just getting themselves prepared for the future mission that was awaiting them. It took him 4 months to fully recover from the attack of influenza, and when Vivekananda left for Calcutta, immediately on the receipt of the news of Balaram Babu's death, he did not forget to request Pramada Babu to take particular care of Abhedananda. It was with tearful eyes that Swamiji bade farewell, writes Swami Abhedananda. But Vivekananda was so much anxious for him that as soon as he arrived in Calcutta, he at once wrote to Swami Sharadananda and his disciple. Sharadananda was to nurse Abhedananda properly. Soon after his recovery, Abhedananda became once again determined to start for a fresh pilgrimage, though he was particularly requested by Sharadananda to stay at Varanasi for a few more days. But as he was bent upon traveling all over India, barefooted and penniless, Abhedananda bade farewell to his brother monk and left Varanasi for Allahabad. We have already indicated that study, meditation, and austerity characterized the life of Abhedananda as a true monk and ascetic. There were integral parts of his spiritual nature, and perhaps they were necessary for the grooming of the future teacher and preacher. In fact, one can hardly imagine this monk anywhere during his 10-year journey from place to place without seeing him deeply absorbed either in study or in practicing austerities. This is why once in the Alambazar Muth, one of his brother monks remarked, Kali Vedanti means study plus meditation plus austerity. So on arriving at Allahabad, we find him in search of a spot which would be favorable to his sadhana, for which he was feeling a deep urge within. At a little distance from the city and on the other bank of the river Jamuna, he selected a secluded spot known as Jushi, where many sadhus carry on their respective sadhana by living inside thatched cottages. As Swami Abhedananda wrote, so I decided to perform tapas by remaining in that thatched cottage at Jushu on the banks of the Jamuna. On arriving there, I found innumerable sadhus in tapas in their respective shelters. I too found out one and settled there. Only once a day I would be out begging for food. I spent almost the whole of the day in the study and meditation. I also picked up acquaintances with other sadhus, and occasionally I entered into spiritual discussions with some of them. It is on record that on one such occasion, Abhedananda told Ramet Sadhu, a follower of Sri Ramachandra, that religion does not consist in learned discussion, but in realization. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. Realize it. Without that, you can understand nothing. Really, he had no kind word for a false monk and would say, one should renounce only after one has gotten control over one's mind while still living the domestic life. On another occasion, when a monk belonging to the Puri order of Shankaracharya came to his cottage in the afternoon hours and asked Abhedananda abruptly if truth is one or many, the reply he got from him was not pedantic, but very simple, yet nonetheless impressive. He said, truth is but one. Through Maya or illusion, we see it diversely. It is in this way that people get all kinds of knowledge in and through the one undivided truth, which is beyond time and space. But people are neither aware of this one truth, nor can they comprehend it. When true knowledge dawns, then you see everything to be but one. Though apparently convinced, the monk threw up another precious question to Abhedananda. Are there then two kinds of knowledge, Swamiji? Yes, there are, replied Abhedananda in a tone that reflected deep conviction. One has to believe in the Vedas, which alone contain the truth experienced by the sages and seers of old, who went beyond the range of duality and perceived unity. Take it from me that religion is a matter of experience and not of intellectual understanding. One must practice it in order to understand it. Such indications of his debating genius were noticed earlier at the Baranganagar monastery, where both Kali Vedanti and Naren used to indulge themselves sometimes in spiritual discourses. In this connection, Mahendranath Dutta writes in his memoirs of his brother Swami Vivekananda, Kali Vedanti was then studying philosophy day and night. He was then found especially interested in the history of philosophy. Naren himself, a fine debater and scholar, praised highly the acumen of Kali Vedanti and predicted that one day he would shine as a philosophic scholar. The subsequent career of Swami Abhedananda bears ample testimony to this prediction. It has also been recorded by Mahendranath Dutta. While at Varanasi, Kali Vedanti did not spare even the universally venerated Swami Bhaskarananda, with whom he once engaged himself in spiritual discourse. And after hours of debating with the old spiritual giant, he came out with flying colors, which pleased even the vanquished Swami. We shall see later on the flowering of this talent in the wandering monk when he went to the West. Swami Abhedananda wrote, "After a few days, Gupta Maharaj, that is Swami Sadananda, joined me at Jushi, and I was very much delighted to see him after a long time. He intended to remain with me for a few days with a view to performing austerity and reading scriptures under me. Because my cottage was a little larger in size, both of us had our accommodation there. At noontime, we would be going to collect food, and sometimes Gupta went alone, and both of us shared whatever was thus collected. In the afternoon hours, Gupta had his lessons from me in Sanskrit grammar, from a book on Vedanta in Hindi. We also used to discuss among ourselves about the Vedanta philosophy. Thus the days at Jushi went by in study and austerity, which brought immense pleasure to me." Swami Abhedananda has related an interesting incident of his life at Jushi, which must be told here, just to show to what extent he was capable of relying on merely providence as he was advancing towards the path of spiritual enlightenment. He wrote, "It was then the rainy season. Every day they would have a shower and storm. One morning it so happened that it began to rain frequently. One of my neighbors was Nanakpanthi Sadhu, who was also a Hindustani. He used to accompany us sometimes when myself and Gupta would be going out for the purpose of begging food. So in that morning, as he looked at the sky that was covered with dense clouds, the Sadhu advised us, saying, it would be better for us to collect food early, otherwise starvation was inevitable. I smiled at these words of the Sadhu and told him there was no need in going out that day for food. We would observe the Aja Gavriti, which means that when there is heavy rain, the snakes never go out of their holes. And if God willed, the food would come here." Gupta did not exactly follow it, and he looked at me vaguely, while the Sadhu repaired to his cottage, apparently bewildered. I really did not move out that day for food, and Gupta followed, although he was a bit surprised at my firm determination. We came out of our cottage, went to the banks of the Ganges, and presently engaged ourselves in study and meditation. And as we were thus engaged, there occurred at the same time a strange incident. The day was then almost over, as I was explaining some Vedantic philosophy to Sadananda. It was just at that moment I noticed a gentleman coming towards us with a basket full of food. As he drew near, I found him to be our well-known Maitra Mahasaya of Baranagar. We were overjoyed to find him there and asked him how did he know our whereabouts. He told us that he came to Allahabad and learned from some that an ascetic by the name of Kali Tapasi was living in Jushi on the banks of the Ganges. And this must be you and none else, I concluded. Of course, I did not know that Gupta Mahasaya was staying with you here, so I became very much eager to see you, as it is prohibited in our scriptures to visit a sadhu empty-handed. I have brought some sweets." The rest of the story is simple. The monks returned to their cottage accompanied by Matra Mahasaya. The food which the latter had brought was in abundance, as he gave a portion of it to the sadhu. Abhedananda did not forget to remind him of the Lord's pledge in the Gita, which was so aptly proved on that day. The sadhu, delighted and astonished, admitted the truth of it and went away to his cottage with the food. Don't you feel the living presence of the Master, Gupta? Was the final remark of Abhedananda.